The first thing is that the Certified Scope Manager agenda that we're going to go through today, I will be talking in some cases about CSM, which stands for Certified Scope Manager. So I'd like to make that really clear at the beginning. If I'm talking about CSM, I mean Certified Scope Manager, which is a new job role. If you've heard of the word scope before in terms of the project management body of knowledge, it's a similar type of thing, but we're talking about a different whole role, a different set of competencies than we have in the project management body of knowledge. It's an expanded type thing. So it's related, but it's expanded. So today we've got 5 things on our agenda that I'd like to talk about. The first is, what is the problem and what's the impact of doing nothing, of staying exactly where we are? Second thing I'd like to talk about is kind of the top 6 reasons for scope management, because I know that having been in software development and been in management consulting for many, many years, that if you take to your boss the fact that you would like to change your role, that you would like to be doing something a little bit different, you need justification. So we're going to talk about why scope management. We're going to talk about something called Northern Scope, which actually hails from Finland, with the Finnish Software Measurement Association, and Pekka Forselius, who is one of the key gurus in Finland, who has been working with the scope management for a number of years. There's also a methodology that's in place in Australia called Southern Scope. And the Certified Scope Manager job role that we're working on with the European Certificates Association is based on the Northern Scope concept. We're also going to talk about what are the CSM competencies, what does it take to be a Certified Scope Manager, and what are the critical success factors. And then pretty much that's going to round out our hour, and you'll know a little bit more about whether or not you'd like to pursue this as a job role, as something that's emerging. You'll find out whether or not you've got what it actually takes. So in terms of where we are in the agenda, I'd like to first tell you that I've done 2 previous webinars on scope management and on what it takes to be involved in scope management. And those were in March of 2008 and also in October of 2008. So if you'd like to, at the end of this webinar, go to the recorded library that CAI has and take a look, and you may want to go through and add to your knowledge base a little bit more background. So if you feel a little bit lost as we're going through some of this, which I may go through fairly quickly, I just wanted to let you know that you may want to go back and review those previous webinars. So let's get started. What's the problem? Well, initially, when we're starting out, and typically you may be in a luxurious position where your customers, if you're a software developer, or your software developers, have the luxurious position of starting out with a solid floor plan. You've already done the requirements, and you can go forward. You know what your scope is. But more and more, we are encountering very sophisticated users and customers and acquirers who know that they have a bag of work, and I'm just using that as an analogy, but they've got this bag of work. They know that they need a software-intensive system to solve a business problem. They know that they need something that's going to make their business propel into the future, that's going to solve and give them a competitive advantage. So they need to budget for that. It's not going to be cheap. And so they typically want to have a fixed price before requirements. So this comes into the problem. And as we take a look at the 2 major contributors or stakeholders that are involved in most of the software development, we have a developer or a supplier, and we have the customer. And of course, there are many more stakeholders involved. End users, business analysts, quality assurance people, there's tons of people who will be involved. But when we take a look at this, when we take a look at things from a customer point of view, very few customers, and I am not blaming the customers, and I'm not blaming suppliers here at all, but very few customers understand that the size of software is something that's important. They want a fixed price for this bag of work, for this technology-intensive solution. So that's what they really want. So they look at this kind of amorphous cloud which is this bag of work, and say, you know what, this is going to be a heavy investment. The only way that I can keep this under control is that I want a fixed price, a not to exceed price. And if you think about it, if you were going out to buy a house, what's the first thing you do? You budget for what the mortgage is going to be, what the overall cost of that particular house is going to cost you. So you want a fixed price. Second thing is, from the perspective of the developer or the supplier, you're looking at this amorphous bag of work or this amorphous piece of software or this home that doesn't yet have a floor plan, and you're saying, oh my gosh, you know, this thing looks like it's going to be a lot of work. It's going to take me a huge amount of hours. So I want to be paid based on the hours worked, and I know for a fact that there's going to be so much change and flux and requirements change, but I just don't know what's involved. So this cloud or this unknown thing that we are estimating, we have no idea, and rightly so, because we are so far in front of solid requirements, in front of having a floor plan, that neither side really knows. So we have this kind of a dilemma. We're looking at the one side and we're saying, it's going to be a lot of work. The other side says, oh my gosh, we've got a lot of investment. So that's kind of where the problem lies. It's impossible before requirements are done to have anything solid. That's just the way it is. It's kind of like this cloud, and you're looking at this cloud and saying, is it going to be a storm? One of my colleagues, who's not even involved in software development, said, you know what, Carol, this is similar to predicting the hurricane season in Florida, where I live. At the beginning of every season, we have a professor who fortunately lives far away from the hurricane area in Colorado who predicts the hurricane season. They say how many named storms they figure based on history, based on risk models. And you know what? They're always wrong. Well, that's the same thing that would happen if I take a amorphous group of work or a bag of work to a software supplier. I know I'm going to get software, but I'm going to be wrong about what the investment should take, and they're going to be wrong about the number of hours it's going to take for the whole reason that this is going to end up with both sides being wrong. Well, that's no way of entering a contract. That would be like entering a marriage and saying, you know what, I know it's going to end in divorce, but I'll pay for the marriage license anyways, and I'll pay for the wedding. That would be a horrible way of going into it. That's probably not a good analogy, but let's move on. So that's the problem. What's the impact of doing projects this way? Well, the Standish Group has the chaos report. Australia has their reports. Ed Jordan has his reports. Everyone's got reports, but they say the same thing. About 2/3 of our information and communications technology projects are failures. And here I'll mention that the ICT stands for Information and Communication Technology. That is an acronym that is primarily used in Europe. It can be used interchangeable in a lot of ways with software-intensive systems programs. It's a lot of different things that go on in there, but it's software-intensive. And they end up in failure. What does failure mean? Well, failure actually means not on time, not on budget, and more importantly, it didn't meet the user requirements. It wasn't even in the scope of what the user wanted. That's a big issue. Problems that are overrun in terms of hundreds of percentages. I know, you can always talk to a CIO that comes up with some project that was overspent by 400%. And these are worldwide. It doesn't